And we are back on the air with the fantastic Jason Spiess for our weekly live chat. Good morning, Jason. How are you today?
Excellent. And how are you doing on this festive Friday, this fantastic Friday?
Oh, just peachy keen, jelly bean. It's a beautiful day. It's super sunshiny out. Again, I don't see any clouds in the sky from where I'm sitting.
Understand you guys got a little bit of storm activity. I feel so isolated here in my little world because, I got rid of my television back in 2007. So I don't pay attention much to the outside world,
Yeah, there was quite a storm last night. I was lucky enough it wasn't super bad near my house, but Elsie tells me that it was coming down in sheets. The rain, a little bit of hail in Belle Fourche. I had seen that there was a tornado that potentially touched down near Lead again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have to look into that more. But yeah, it was quite an evening last night.
Well, in the world of the energy, it was quite a week in Wyoming. I don't know if you saw the news headlines, but they laid the last rig down this week. So there's now 0 rigs operating in the state of Wyoming. And that's a very significant milestone. It's the second time in 136 years is what I believe it is. Yep, second time in 136 years. Yeah, there's all kinds of studies and that sort of thing, and they equate, I think, 100 jobs to each rig. And, I get where they're coming from, but I think it's a little bit more than that. There's a supply chain involved. There's, cafes and convenience stores, and that's just the tip of the iceberg when you're talking about the supply chain that comes along with the upstream, the downstream, the midstream, and that's why I always joke salmon stream, because there's such a whole different marketplace and economy from the oil and gas upstream, downstream, midstream, that it's its own economy. And so when I see that the oil rigs fall to 0 in a state, man, it really concerns me for a couple reasons. One is that the momentum and the movement to go away from fossil fuels is really ramping up. And, we were kind of joking last week, a few of us, that in October, November, December last year, our marketing kits, our media kits were on the cover page. It said "Ready for Anything 2020," and we did it because of the environmental movement, the 16-year-old girl, the use of children in protests, and just we've talked about it, and you remember back last year we were talking about these different things, and even more so, I made a prediction many times last year that if the climate change movement continues, you'll see, I don't know, 8 to 12 companies that are going to control 80 to 90% of the oil and gas market globally. Saudi Arabia being a country, or a company, and China being a company, that sort of thing, where you've got countries essentially acting as companies, same kind of concept. But basically you have 8 to 12 entities that essentially are going to control the 90% of the oil and gas market. I think we're going to get there because of the coronavirus and the climate change working together. So, going back, Ready for Anything, I would have never guessed that Wyoming would have went down to 0 rigs. And that's significant for a lot of reasons. I mentioned the job side of things, but look at the leadership side of things. So whether you want to look at the politics of climate change or not, you need to look at the economics of the state. So now you're talking about schools, and you're talking about municipalities and nonprofits and these types of organizations that are not only not going to receive charitable donations from the oil and gas companies because they're not around there, but the state's not going to have any of that money now to fund these programs. So it's going to fall back on the people. There's already a big group of people extremely nervous about opening their property tax bills next year coming off of this CARES Act. You can't pump trillions of dollars into the economy without getting it back somehow. So there's already that concern. Now you couple in the Wyoming thing, which concerns me the most about what happened in Wyoming is this increasing trend of poor leadership. And what I mean by that is this appointed leadership. Take a look in Wyoming. How is it that we didn't hear from anybody, whether it's a petroleum council there or it's a legislator or it's the state, oil and gas division? How come nobody over the last month came out and said, I don't want to alarm anybody. I'm not saying we're going to hit 0 rigs, but we might hit 2. We didn't even hear that. So to have all these leaders come out now and say, oh, here's my reaction to us hitting 0 rigs, how is that acceptable? How is that even leadership? Anyone can react. Who is going to lead right now? I get it when, you sit in a room with a bunch of yes men and you're trying to be proactive, it's a risk. I get that because I've been in those meetings where people talk about being proactive and all these buzzwords, and then you actually try to be proactive and no one will be that. And, humans are interesting because we resist change, and that's why when change comes, it happens so fast. And by the time change happens, people are like, whoa, what happened? Well, it's the new normal, move on. So it's interesting times right now, and that's my concern in Wyoming, is that how is it there wasn't anybody before the rig count hit 0 that came out and said the rig count could hit 0? There are communities that invested major projects because of oil and gas. There are businesses that took out loans because of oil and gas. And there are many people that get paid a lot of money to protect the interests of oil and gas that just sat around and did nothing and now are commenting, oh, well, look at this number and look at this statistic and, oh, boy, we hit 0. Yeah, I know. I read that too. I mean, it's remarkable. So anyway, so I don't know if you got any comments on that. I mean, there's a lot there from, the different supply chains to the leadership side. But you know me, it's Friday. This is, to me right now, it's like 5 o'clock. I've been up since 3 a.m. So, yeah.
That's funny. No, I just can't help but think about how much, I shudder to think about how much worse it could possibly get for so many, because the issues that you're describing aren't even the things that first come to mind with potential issues for in the coming months with business owners, with companies, nonprofit organizations, with individuals in general, with the way that things are changing and kind of going. And so it's yeah.
Well, there's a lot here.
Yeah.
There's so much here, and that's why it baffles me that there was nobody that was out in front of this. And anybody who tried to be out in front of this basically got criticized by the leaders that are now reacting to this. I don't understand that. But that's the world that we live in, where a lot of people that are in positions of appointed leadership are not leaders. They're regurgitators. They react. And they're being exposed right now. A lot of them are being exposed right now because they're not being proactive. They're not staying ahead of the curve. In Fargo, our mayor just came out yesterday. Now he's being investigated by the Criminal Bureau of whatever because he was publicly stating one of the police chief's applications or something like that. Point is that these guys are so knee deep and into the forest and swamp, they don't even know when they're doing anything wrong. It's like when that guy from Chicago, is it Boyglovich or Baglovich or Julivanovich, I forget his name, but he was trying to sell Obama's seat. I mean, everybody knows that's what happens, but nobody does it. I mean, you can't actually do it. I mean, it's you know what I mean? It's just when you're in the culture and you don't even recognize the difference between right and wrong anymore. And it just baffles me that we're in such a place where people who do the right thing have such an uphill battle logistically, linguistically, and geography even now because so many different organizations are becoming centralized. And so it's a different, there's the shift. It's the shift that's happening. Take a look at the PPP loan. That's one of the most magnificent sleight of hands I've ever seen in my life. Okay, just magnificent. So you have this. Now they're trying to rush the forgiveness side of it. And you know what? Probably 70% of the people are legit. Really, 70% of the people that got the loans are probably legit. But there's a lot of people that are not. And the people that got under $150,000, I think it was under $150,000. Like I said, I don't know the numbers, so prove me wrong, government, prove me wrong. But from my anecdotal people I've talked to and the news stories I've read, and even the little bit of research I've done, there's a number of abuse by millionaires that own Airbnbs and have a construction company, so they got couple different LLCs underneath. Management, you own a hotel and you got a management company and sometimes even a billing company. So just because you have one company doesn't mean you don't have two or three. And so those are the companies that are going to get fast tracked too. So there are, the fast tracking of the forgiveness and all this. I get it that at the core, it's going to help the majority of the people, but it is going to also fast track some of the corruption that's there as well. And so there's just another example of just this constant fill people full of noise and then try to rush things through. It's not always the best interest. It's not always in the best interest of where we're trying to go with things. So anyway, I'm kind of doing a little bit of that existentialism this morning, I guess.
I always enjoy listening to you talk, though. It definitely, I don't know, spurs a lot of thought process. I hope for others as well as myself,
Well, and I hope people know I'm trying to help this week because that's some real problems in Wyoming. There's some real problems there. If your rig count goes down to zero, there's some problems there. Now, luckily, Wyoming's got the natural gas, and I think that'll probably, weather through some of the storms. But when you're talking about, 100 jobs dedicated to a rig, and then those 100 jobs ripple into the communities, cafes and the convenience stores and the haircuts and that sort of thing. That's real problems. That's real problems. And then to layer on top of that, your whatever bill is going to go up because the education, you don't have $100 million going to your local education because there's no oil and gas being produced. Well, okay, now you got to layer that on top of there. And then, like I said, then you got all the nonprofits and everybody else coming at you, and Little League games needing jerseys, Little League teams needing jerseys, that sort of thing. So there's a real ripple here. And again, I'm not trying to be negative, but then you got to layer in that PPP and the small business and all that other shift going on. And man, I just can't believe that people aren't having discussions like this and they're hung up on other things. But these are, so just be aware. Be aware of your neighbors. They might need, they might need a hand, and they might not have the courage to ask for help because right now it's some very trying times.
No, absolutely.
I talked to a 72-year-old woman who still hasn't gotten her stimulus check yet, her $1,200 stimulus check, and they want to forgive millionaires' loans already. And you got people who haven't even been bailed out in the first round yet. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
This is
right.
It's ludicrous. And then we've got in our state, our superintendent, he sent for the schools. I mean, you can't make this up. This is when going back to the leadership part again, where he sent everybody an email, and it was like 47 pages long if you print it out. I mean, it was like War and Peace. My goodness, the thing was long. And basically, it just said, what would you do? Okay. So you're asking us to make your leadership decisions for you? Okay. Why don't you get a raise, too? Why don't you put another 20 grand at the end of your salary, too? I mean, come on. This is, I understand it's not going to be an easy decision, but that's why you're there. And to, ask thousands of people, what would they do? Anyway, so that's just me being a little bit ornery towards that, but also be aware that's what's going on. There's a lot of people who are very afraid to be leaders right now. And it's okay. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you don't make the right choice, but at least you're moving ahead and not backwards. That's the important part, is moving ahead and not backwards. So,
Right.
yeah. Anyway, but so check it out. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just that was all I was going to say, was just how to proceed from there.
Yeah, and we've got some great, by the way, we got some great interviews this week with pockets of positivity in the Permian. We've got some examples of things happening in the Bakken. So if you go to thecrudelife.com, you're going to find some interviews with some great individuals and companies that are out there. We got a few people that are talking about some international, like the reality that you've got Chinese companies and European companies that have been buying up these smaller and mid-sized oil companies for a while. And now with people working from home, you're having a shift in culture because you've got people from Europe and China now administering mostly these types of policies into their lives. So when they're not leaving their homes, they're basically being overseen now by a foreign executive. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It's a culture change. So we talk about that this week as well. Again, we're not getting into the politics of that because it's already done. It's happening. And so sometimes people get a little caught up on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, because like I said, it doesn't matter. It's done. It's been going on for 10 years and that I know about it, just in the Bakken alone. And the guys down in Texas are talking about it now too, because it's becoming more. Well, it's becoming more and more prevalent, and it's here. I mean, it's a rush.
It's gonna have to run its course. Yep.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a little bit of growing pains there, but anyway. So we have that, and then of course this week we're going to be airing some more of our week in review. I'm sorry, a live recording session from Greeley, Colorado, about regulations gone wild or the new normal. So talk about that a little bit, and that was kind of fun because we had somebody running for the Colorado House of Representatives, a state house. And she was a Democrat, and she actually joined the panel. We brought her up from the audience, and she joined in. She was great. Yeah. Well, hey, you never know what you're going to get at the Crude Life, so why not? If you got something to say, we'll listen. Doesn't mean we'll agree, but we'll listen.
Right. That's fantastic.
So check it out, folks. And for those of you on the Wyoming side, I feel for your pain that's happening right now with the last rig being laid down. Hopefully it won't be too long, and they'll get those back up and running again.
Yeah, keep my fingers crossed. Hopefully it'll get back up and running. I hadn't even heard that, so I'm glad you brought it up. I got some research to do.
Yeah, the news story just came out yesterday afternoon, and we put a request in to several people on the Crude Life to talk about it, and we didn't get anything back, and I kind of read a little bit more and more into it, and it's that's when I got a little bit irritated by the leadership, because I'm like, okay, how is this surprising people? This should be something that, there's people that get paid a lot of money to stay ahead of this stuff, and the same thing happened in the Bakken. Oh, we didn't see this coming. Oh, nobody saw that coming. Well, why are you there then? Seriously, why do you have 47 different assistants? And a department and all these other things? If you can't even see things like that happen, if it's the second time in 136 years and you couldn't see one of the tea leaves, that ain't good. That's a wake-up call, in my opinion. But I'm just, one guy. I'm just the North Dakota nomad. What do I know? I just travel around the country listening to people.
Well, I'm glad that we've got people like you to pay attention and bring us information on stuff like this, because you're always so very informative. So thank you, Jason.
Well, you are welcome, and hopefully you guys have yourself a wonderful week. I'm trying to figure out a good week to get out to the Black Hills again. I just miss it so much, and you know that during the summer you got to take in as much as you can of that. Winters are gorgeous too, but just I don't know. I could probably take a nap in the Spearfish Creek and be fine. It'd freeze to death, but it'd be just. Love that. My pooch absolutely loves it too. Moochie, she loves the creek there. So we got to get back. But anyway. Well, we'll catch you next week. I know we've gone over our time. I'm trying to be vigilant now. So we'll catch you next week. And hopefully you'll check out the Crude Life Week in Review, thecrudelife.com.
Sounds great. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Have a good week.